Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good everything. Yes, that's to say we are live in the Word Cafe live show. How are you doing? Yes, it's been wonderful. Yes, so many happenings all around the world and what have you. But you know how we do it here. We come into the cafe to lean on one another, to get inspired, to get, would I say, some revelations that would move us to the next level of our living. Yes, today I have a wonderful, wonderful topic to deal with and a wonderful personality. Yes, you're seeing it on the screen already, dealing with trauma. A lot of us in the recent past we've been having so many, should I say, issues coming at us, and it's like, wow, what's happening? I mean, we just have a lot of, should I say, mental health issues springing up here and there. Sometimes I ask myself, what is the root cause of all this? And you will agree with me, trauma it is. So I have somebody who loves talking about trauma, but with regards to teenagers now, yes, Phinnah Chichi is her name. Don't worry, I'll bring her in so very soon. She has this personality that you will enjoy. I tell you, you will enjoy it. The way she approaches the issues is mind blowing. Enough. I know, yes, you want to see her and you want to hear her voice. And there she is. Hi, Fina. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Perfect. I'm good. I'm good.
Awesome. Awesome.
What's up with you? Where you
Ooh.
are on the earth today, what's up with you?
It's a great day. I've done a few great things today already, and I'm excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this show,
Oh,
and I am excited. I'm looking forward to what we have to talk about today because it's my
wonderful. I
yes, yes.
am I am so grateful. When I got in touch with you and I said, Fina, what's up? Can you do this with me? And when you
Me.
said yes, wow, you made my day. I was like, yeah. And I called my wife and I was telling her, Fina is coming on the show. I said,
Yes,
really?
that's
Yes, she's coming on the show. Awesome. Yes. I know my audience would like to meet Phinnah Chichi. Who is this Phinnah Chichi? Let me let you do the honors, as it were. Who is she?
Thank you so much. Fina Chichi is a parenting consultant and a teens coach. In teens coaching, I focus a lot on mental and emotional well-being for
Mhm.
teenagers. I've been working with parents and teenagers for over 15 years. I started as a chartered accountant. I used to
Wow,
be a chartered accountant in my other
counting
life.
all the monies.
Yes. But I went into family coaching, family practitioner is part of my life passion. It's
Okay.
the family has always been a dear thing to me, even before just growing up.
Hmm.
And so I knew that this was a place I needed to be in, and I started it over 15 years ago, and I've been working with parents and teenagers. And for me, watching the transformation, watching the understanding that parents are now having more with their
Yeah.
teenagers means a lot to me. I focused on teenagers because the teenage years, a lot of parents dread the teenage years. Sometimes it's quite
Mm.
confusing for parents when they see the changes that are happening and they're baffled, like, what happened to my child? Your child is still
Exactly.
there. Your child is just evolving. That's what it is. So I love that age. I love the teenagers themselves. I'm very passionate about them, and I believe so much about them, and so much in them.
Amen.
So it's a beautiful journey that I've had so far. I also have a podcast as well, called the Parenting Teen Solutions Podcast. And recently we were voted in the top 60 world parenting
Awesome.
podcast, parenting teens podcast. So I was very, very appreciative of that,
Wonderful.
and great. So
So
thank
we're,
you.
we're,
Thanks.
we're honored. We're honored having you here, to rub off, those, on us. So I will ask this question, even though in course of your introduction, you said one or two things about it. What drove you into this space? What
Ooh,
drove you into this space?
do you know what?
Tell me.
My own life drew me to this. My own trauma that I went through as a kid
Whoa.
drew
Hmm.
me into this space. Yeah, I
Do you
grew
want to
up.
share
My
with
mom,
us?
Yes, of course. My dad died
Oh,
when I
thank
was
you.
5 years old, all of a sudden. So
Oh,
he took my mom to work, drove my mom to work. My mom was a nurse working night shift. Drove my mom to work and was gonna come back to pick her up, but she said, "Don't worry, I'll come with a friend who lives nearby."
mm,
And he didn't come back, so she was at work. Can you imagine ER when you're in a hospital and an ambulance comes in and the whole team is running to the ambulance to get the person on the stretcher and then go and do what they need to do with that person. So my mom's team was called for an ambulance that just came in that same night,
yeah.
and my mom's team was called to go get the patient. And
Whoa.
as they got there, she was like, "What? That's her husband, the guy that
Don't
just
you don't say.
the guy that just dropped her at work." Was
Whoa.
back to the hospital in an ambulance on a stretcher. And he passed. He died that night.
So sorry.
And thank you. And the shock of it all, even she was so shocked. We didn't talk about my dad's death for years. And me being the eldest, I took it. It hit me very hard at 5 years old.
Mhm.
It hit me so hard that I internalized a lot of it. I thought he rejected us because no one explained to the 5-year-old what death was all about or what death
Yeah.
is. So the
Yeah.
5-year-old just made her own assumptions.
Sorry. Sorry.
That's
Go
okay.
on.
The 5-year-old just made her own assumptions and lived
Yeah.
life through those assumptions. Feeling rejected, feeling ashamed. Can you imagine a 5-year-old feeling ashamed of death? Feeling ashamed that her
Whoa.
dad died? I mean, what kind of burden is that?
Not
And
what
so
it
that
has
was,
anyway.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so that was my own journey through trauma, through my teenage years that I found very um, not very, I didn't have a lot of people I could confide with in those things because no one else was going through all that stuff, I thought.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
else was enjoying, had their parents, had their dads. And so I felt that the teenage years was a period that if teenagers can get the teenage years right, because
Yeah.
that is the foundation to their adulthood, then they get into their
Mhm.
adulthood more prepared than I was. And I found that I had the burden to help teenagers through that.
So how did you go? How did you go through those years?
Cool.
How did you go through those years?
Hmm. Because of the assumptions I had and the shame I carried, I was a people pleaser.
Mm.
I wasn't confident in myself, low self esteem. Even though I carried on normally, I mean, if you had seen me, you won't think of those things, but those were internal battles that I dealt with. And it
Yeah.
affected me even achieving. Like I used to just settle for average grades. I didn't aim for first. I didn't want last, but I was just a settler. I just settled. I just settled. And
Mhm.
I saw that even as I got into adulthood, it actually affected me. It affected me in my decisions, the jobs that I chose, me asking for a pay rise. All those
Mm.
things were part of what affected me. And I knew that as I started going into the personal development space and healing myself, because I started
Yeah.
coming to terms with what's going on.
Yeah.
Then I started doing a lot of work, internal work on that. And as I did that, I said, what if teenagers had this same kind of stuff?
Wow.
What if?
Wow.
What if?
And the what if is what we are doing today, more or less.
That's
Like
exactly. That's
you
exactly
just
right.
embrace that. What I say, space, and you're
Yes.
working in it.
Yes.
Now, trauma sounds alien to the black man.
Mm-hmm.
If
Mm-hmm.
you understand what I mean by that,
Yes. Yes.
we always feel that it's not for people like us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's for those the
Yes.
Caucasians or something like that. But you
Yes.
and I know it's not true.
No.
Now, tell me, because you're a Nigerian, you live in the
Mm-hmm.
UK.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you've dealt with trauma,
Mm-hmm.
firsthand, and more or
Yes.
less you overcame.
Yes.
For the black mind, if I must use that word for the lack of words now, how do we deal, or how should we deal with trauma?
Okay. Before I even get into that, let me even explain what trauma is so that the people who
Good.
think that
Exactly.
trauma is not for them, I will just
Mhm.
explain that. So, trauma is an emotional response, yeah, to a terrible event like an accident, rape, natural disaster, a death in the family. But
Mm.
what I take out of that definition is that it's an emotional response means that it's individual. Like my sisters may not have felt the way I felt to my dad dying. So that was my own trauma. Doesn't
Okay.
mean that they shared the same kind of
Yeah.
experience that I shared. Did you see what I
Hmm.
mean? Also,
I do.
any event that is deeply upsetting, scary, or harmful is trauma.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
trauma doesn't have to be the biggest things that you see there, the natural disasters, all those are traumas. But traumas can even be, and one of the effects that the trauma that I had affected with me is that when I had adults who yelled at me
Hmm.
when I was a kid, that
Yeah.
that that shook me off. That took me back to, oh my God, if my
Yeah.
dad was here, this would not be
It
happening.
wouldn't.
You know,
Exactly.
so yelling was traumatic to me.
Okay.
And back in those days, when I would be shocked, like, why are these adults yelling? My friends or my relatives be like, oh, you're just being an ajebota, oh, people yell, that's the normal thing. I said, no, it's not normal, because I couldn't understand why adults couldn't speak to kids, why adults couldn't talk, why they had to yell. I couldn't understand it. And that's why, if you see, most of my work today is on
Yeah.
the no yelling business.
No yelling. Why
No
do
yelling.
adults yell? Tell me.
Should I
Because do
be?
you know what? Do you know what?
Yes.
Sorry, I had to cut in there.
No, 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 no,
My
no.
my son will always ask that question, Daddy, why are you shouting?
Yeah,
Why are you shouting?
yeah. And that
Well,
question is
like,
deep.
yes,
Yeah.
can't we just talk? So
Yes.
why do we yell? Tell me.
Why do we yell? You know what? It's a pattern that we've learned growing up.
Okay.
We've learned it. It's something we saw. And as parents, we parent the way we were parented. Unless
Mm.
we then
Mirroring it more
decide
or less.
that's exactly what it is. And it's by default. It's not like you're saying, oh, I'm going to yell like my mom yelled, or I'm going to yell like my dad yelled. It's not that. It's just by default.
Mm.
And so we take that on, but not realizing that our children are reacting to it differently. I reacted to it differently than my sisters.
Okay.
Your son may be reacting to it differently than his sibling.
No, my second son
So
just walks away. He doesn't even listen. He just walks away.
exactly, exactly,
Just like, when you're
exactly.
done shouting, we can have
Yeah,
this
when you're done
conversation.
shouting, yeah, let's do this. Yeah. So the thing is, so this trauma that we talk about, children experience it in different ways,
Okay.
and the danger that children face is their parents dismissing it as if
Their
it's no big
parents
deal. Oh,
dismissing it.
dismissing it, yeah, dismissing it like it's no big deal. What do you mean? You feel hurt? What does that mean?
Mm.
Who are you to feel hurt? But that's the child's own experience.
So, how should we respond as a parent now to that? Because the truth is, what you're saying is real. We try to play down the
Yes,
child's emotion or the children's emotion, like, come on, grow up, and
yes,
all that. How
yes.
should we respond?
We've got to believe them from where they are.
Okay.
We've got to believe them from where they are. We've got to validate their feelings. If they
Okay.
feel hurt about something, I hear you. Tell me more.
Mm.
Tell me more. How can I help?
Okay. Okay.
Because when you invite them to tell you more, they can then express what it is that they're feeling. And then
Mm.
you, as a parent, you now have the opportunity to help them. See, if
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to share with the adults
Yeah.
around me that my dad rejected me, of course,
Mm.
the adults around me would have had the opportunity to correct the 5-year-old and say, no, 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 he didn't. It's something that's just happened out of his control. And
Okay.
I would have saved years of living with that assumption of
Mm.
rejection.
Mm.
So it's important that when children complain about something or say something like that to adults and their parents, it's
Yeah.
important that we hear them out. They're only speaking from their own level. Let's invite them in to speak, to say more. Because the more they can say based on their understanding, even though their understanding is
Yeah.
wrong, but they don't know it's wrong, they
Mm.
believe in what they're saying.
Now, Fina, if I hear you correctly, it is more or
Mhm.
less like befriending your children, more or less like you befriend them, but
Yes.
our climb we don't know how to befriend our children. We boss them.
Yeah.
We boss them around that. So
Yeah.
how do I befriend my child or my children so that I can get them out of that traumatic whatever experience? Let them know that okay, something happened, fine, sorry,
Mhm.
but this is how to go
Mhm.
about it. How do I befriend them?
You love on them, and you
Okay.
be less critical to them, because you see a child, and when we say this befriending, I use the word love and care for your child, because when I tell parents okay about being a friend, sometimes
Mm,
we can confuse our children if we aim to be their friends. So I always
okay.
tell parents, be a friendly parent, because we still
Be a
need to have those
friendly
boundaries.
parent.
Yes, yes, we still need to have those boundaries, because sometimes if we say okay, oh, my child is my friend or my child is my bestie, okay, my bestie, sometimes I'm not going to do what you want me to do. So I hope you're going to
Hmm.
be okay with that. Do you see what I mean? So I always tell
I
parents,
do.
if you just say friendly parent, because if you say friends, children can take it the other way. Say, well, okay, since we're friends, if you tell me to do this, I don't have to do it, my friend. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
Hmm.
be a friendly parent. But the main thing with being a friendly parent is be able to listen. Listening is the biggest skill you can have with your child, where you can listen to them so that they can open up more to you. Not listening to them to shut them down. What do you mean? What are you saying? What do you know? What do you know? Who are you? It's not that kind of listening. Listening to them so that they can share more.
Yeah.
And I tell you why this is so necessary today, more than ever. We live in a global society. It's not
Yeah.
about now the people in your local neighborhood anymore. No. Your children, all they need to
Yeah.
do is pick up a phone, pick up a laptop, pick up an iPad,
Hmm.
and the world is
Hmm.
in their ears.
Exactly.
So we can't afford not to be our children's supports. We can't afford
Oh,
to parent like our parents parented us. We
our
can't
parents
afford
did.
it in today's world.
But you know what? A good number of us, will I say, we live in denial. It's like we don't know how to ask for
Yes,
that help.
yes,
I need help. I
yes.
need help. Like for me, yes,
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with the, would I say, practical African family
Yes.
where, you don't have so much conversation with mommy and daddy. I mean, with
Mhm.
daddy as such, more with
Yes,
mommy, and
yes,
all that. But now I see that it's not like that because
yes,
practically everything, they are looking at me like I want us to talk more or less.
yes,
Daddy, what do you think about this? What do you think
yes.
about that?
Mhm.
So now, how do we help parents to be intentional? Because more or less what you've said here is you just have to be intentional. How
Exactly.
do we help parents?
You see, what we're doing today is part of the how.
Okay.
There's a lot of information out there for parents, but I think
Mm,
one of the biggest things for parents is trying to understand that parenting is not the word I want to use now. See, you can nurture your children. Nurturing is natural.
okay.
Nurturing your child is natural.
Mm.
Parenting isn't. Parenting is a skill.
Whoa.
Yes, parenting is a skill. Parenting doesn't just come, it's not natural, it's not a natural thing. It's a skill.
So more or less, nurturing is different from parenting. That's what you
It's
just said.
different from parenting. Yes.
So we need to
It's
have a
different.
parenting school.
Yes. 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 Because parenting is more about the parent.
Ooh. More
Parenting is
about
more
more about the
about the
parent, not
parent.
even the children now.
It's
Awesome.
more, it's more about the parents. And it's then what the parent brings to that parent-child relationship. It's
Mm,
more about the parents. The
mm.
children are going through childhood.
So it's what you give to them.
It's what you give to them. It's
Awesome.
what is
This
what you
is
give to them.
this
So
is
the
so. Go on, go on, go on, go
so
on.
the key is to take the stigma off of the fact that, because what parents, what and this is of no fault of parents, but because of the way we've all grown up in this world,
Hmm.
when parents seek for help, sometimes there's a stigma that if they're seeking for help means that they're bad parents. But I always encourage parents that you're seeking for help doesn't mean you're bad. It actually means you're great. You even want to be greater. You want to parent intentionally. That is why you're seeking for help. If you don't ask, if you don't seek for help, then you end up with lots of regrets. because this
Yeah,
childhood age is not that long. 0 to 18 flies by so quickly.
it
So if
does.
you need the help, get the help so that your children can enjoy those memories. Because I work a lot with a lot of teenagers,
Hmm.
and it's sad when I hear I've cried. So I've cried after some sessions.
I can imagine.
I've shed tears after
I
some
can,
sessions with
I can
teenagers.
imagine.
Because when I
Now,
hear, yeah,
no, go on. Finish your thought. I want to ask this question, but finish your thought.
yes, because when I hear what they go through in their homes, when I hear the kind of words that parents use on their teenagers, it can be heartbreaking.
Wow.
And then you wonder
Mm.
why teenagers sometimes act out, because it then these things like trauma and all these things come
Yeah.
and play in their behaviors and their moods.
Now, recently, some few days ago, something happened globally that
Yes.
for the past, should I say, how many days, it's just
Mhm.
everywhere.
I
The
know.
Will Smith, Chris Rock saga.
Yes.
And some people said it was staged, and some people said, oh, it wasn't staged, it's real and all
Mhm.
that. But
Mhm.
looking at it, my my thought is, could it be that this guy is acting something out? A long, should I say, prolonged issue that has been there, haunting him and all that. And it was like, I can't take it anymore. I just have to let loose.
Mhm.
So, what do you think? Do we see that play out in our children? I mean, things, long standing experiences and all that. And it's like you have that climax and boom, they just let go.
Totally. Totally. Unexpressed trauma, things that have happened to people when they were young that has not
Yeah.
been dealt with. It
Mm.
comes out, it shows up in adulthood. It shows up in relationships, it shows up in marriages, it shows up in the workplace. When you see bosses and stuff being so arrogant and being all these kind, these are all when you really sit down and talk, it
Yeah.
comes down to lots of things that happen in childhood that they don't even realize. I did see a post following that day after the incident. I did see a post, and it was sharing some of the thoughts that Will Smith had shared some years ago about
Yeah.
his family, his dad,
Beat up his
and mom.
mom.
They had domestic. There was a lot of domestic violence. He
Yeah.
remembers one of the times when can't remember if he was 8 or 9, where his dad had punched the mom. The mom was bleeding. He was in his room. He couldn't come out because, of course, he's scared. What can he come out to do? And
Yeah.
now looking forward now to his to adulthood, you can see that okay, now he feels this could be a situation where he felt I'm not that little boy anymore stuck in the room where I
Anymore.
couldn't do anything. I need to come out and do something. And
Yeah.
when we link people's behaviors in adulthood to childhood trauma, we're not linking it because we want to make it as an excuse. It's not an excuse.
Yeah.
It's an open door for people to start looking inwards to see what is actually going on in their lives. Statistics shows many is I mean the percentage is high of people of kids who have gone through trauma in one way or the other, be it
Mm.
domestic violence, be it even parents arguing and fighting with each other, not even touching the
Mm.
child, but
Yeah.
just arguing and fighting with each other themselves, and the child knows that the child is
Yeah.
scared.
Yeah.
And children react very differently. That could be trauma that the child is holding on to. I know young adults today who go to the gym who are, they want to get muscles because they're thinking, if anyone dared to touch my mom now that I'm older, that's going to be it.
You don't say.
Honestly.
Whoa.
Or you see people either they're overachieving or
Mhm.
they're underachieving because they're
Yeah.
now reacting to a lot of
Hmm.
things that they saw growing up. It comes up in adulthood. Most of the childhood trauma shows up in adulthood. Therapists will share that with you. They would say
Now,
that that's a lot of things that they see on their
in corporate
in
in
their works.
corporate space, let's take it to corporate space because you just mentioned, you see people reacting and all that in the office.
Yes,
So many organizations downplay these things.
yes,
They don't pay attention to it, and before you know it, I mean, it's out there, and
yeah.
somehow they want to do damage control, trying to, save the face of the organization. From where you stand, what do you think organizations should do? I mean, knowing that this is obviously I mean, it's a problem we have to deal with. What should they do?
I think organizations and large organizations should start, and I experienced this when I used to work at the Telegraph. We used to have a counselor that used to provide service for all the staff, and you could go in there and talk and stuff. And I think organizations should definitely arrange that and have that as part of their well-being, because organizations, a lot of organizations are investing in well-being now, isn't it? Staff well-being and
True.
all that stuff.
True.
And these are the kind of things that come into place because a lot of people are going through stuff. And
Mm,
if they're not helped, and it doesn't help, it shows up in the workplace. Or you see people calling in, long-term illnesses, they're stressed, they're
mm,
depressed. A
mm.
lot of these things are very related to trauma. So what organizations can start doing, and some already doing, is really investing into the well-being of their staff and their employees. Because again, when the more you invest into your employees, the more your employees will be productive, and it's
De-
a win-win situation for you.
Definitely,
You know?
definitely, because it's like the what I say, that word we always use, work-life balance and all that.
Yes. Yes.
What happens at home flows into the office,
Big
and
time.
somehow what happens also in the office goes back home.
That's
So,
right.
but if you try to like address it, give it that, what I say, attention that it deserves, you
Yes.
come to like douse that tension. Awesome
Exactly.
guys. We've been
Exactly.
discussing with Phinnah Chichi on dealing with trauma. For those of us who are from this part of the world, we live in denial, but
Mm.
obviously it is an issue staring at us that we need to handle, and handle we must. Now, Chichi, before for the sake of time, before I let you go, you know,
Mhm.
what are you up to now? What are you up to? Because I know you're doing so many things and all that.
Mm.
What are you up to?
It's still what I'm up to now is even spreading the message more and more. You see, we hear a lot of disasters and things happening in our country.
Yeah,
They're all linked to trauma.
of course they are.
They're
I
all
agree
linked to
from what
trauma.
you've said now.
So yeah, there's we so I would say, and this is one of the things that I'm talking about more and more. There's no need to be in denial anymore about this whole stuff. We need to open up our eyes and see what is happening in our community. You see videos from secondary schools. You see videos from things
Mm,
that people are doing on the streets. You see what's
mm,
going on, in the country. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and it starts in our homes.
mm,
It starts in our homes because as adults now, we're reading a lot of stuff on the internet. We can get a lot of help. How can we start then putting that help that we have into place into the lives of our children so that our children don't have to grow up with those same traumatic experiences? And
mm.
one of the biggest things as well that I'm preaching around is that, okay, when we know better, we do better. Okay, let's say we didn't know before and we contributed to a lot of things. Now we know better. Let's then do better. I love this Alvin Toffler's quote that I love to share. And he says that the illiterates of the 21st century, they won't be those who cannot read or write. Mm-mm. They're going to be those who are not willing to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I
Please take
love
that
that.
again.
Okay,
Take
okay.
that again, because I saw it somewhere when I was reading.
Yes,
Take that again.
yes. Alvin Toffler, he says that the illiterates of the 21st century
Yeah,
won't be those who cannot read or write. It's going to be those who are unwilling to learn, unlearn, and relearn in life.
awesome.
And so for all
They
of us
are
in life,
unwilling.
unwilling, not the read and write, because before it used to be, oh, illiterates, they can't read or write. Nah, that's
No, no, no,
past.
no,
This is about people who are unwilling to learn, unlearn, and relearn. We have a lot of unlearning to do,
no. Okay.
and we've got to embrace the unlearning journey
Hmm.
so that we can survive and we can thrive in this 21st century. Because even if we do not do these things where we need to unlearn and relearn, we can create businesses, we can create all that stuff. They won't be sustainable because guess what? That behavior is going to come out one way or the other.
One way or the other.
One way or the other, those effects of those traumatic experiences will come out one way or the other. In marriages, in relationships, in the workplace, in businesses, in partnerships. they will all come out in one way or the other. So we start with ourselves and then
Mhm.
start to implement these changes with our children. Have conversations with our children. What do they like? What don't they like? Understand it from their levels.
Mm.
And then we can start teaching them. Because if we don't understand it from their levels, we won't hear what it is, the assumptions they're making.
Mm.
I work with a lot of teenagers that will say, my parents don't love me. And I'll say, how? But did your parents say they don't love you? No. But when they shouted at me or when they called me that name, I just concluded they don't love me. And they take that unloved feeling that they feel, they take it outside. For girls, the first boy that says, oh, I love you, it's like, oh, he loves me.
Ooh.
He runs to that boy because she hasn't felt loved at home. So she runs to the first person that says, I love you.
Wow.
Or they
Wow.
get into so many acts. Is it peer
Mm.
pressure, negative peer pressure, smoking, all that kind of stuff? So
Yeah.
it starts with us as individuals and then starting to support our children. No matter how trivial you think that trauma is not trivial to your child. And each child is different. So get to know your child, get to understand your child. Some children are quite sensitive. Don't
Hmm.
display that sensitivity. Don't write them off and say, oh, you're just too sensitive, or you're too soft, or be a
Yeah.
man. Don't do
Yeah,
that.
man.
Don't do that. Because when you do
Real
that,
men. Real
you
men
shut
don't
them up.
cry.
Yes, yes. You shut them up from expressing their emotions. And you and I know how valuable emotional intelligence is today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we want our
Hey,
children to be able to be free to express those emotions.
amazing. Amazing. If I hear you well, is there's no shame in
No.
asking for help when it comes to this, because I think that's another problem. We look at the society as in it's like it's going to be a stigma if I
Mm-hmm.
put myself out there to say I need help with respect to this. But what you just said now, parenting is not natural. We
Yes,
learn it.
yes,
We
totally.
learn to be a parent. So there's no harm if you made a
Yes,
mistake here or there. You ask for help, and
yes,
you go through that schooling, and
yes,
also like you begin to impart positively on
yes,
your children, which will bring about that positive impact. Wow,
exactly.
Tina, this is amazing.
Thank
I
you.
mean,
Thank you.
go on and on talking, but I know you have other things to catch up with. We want to say a very big thank you to you.
You are
Before I let
welcome.
you go, what is that word you have for that mother, for that father listening to this podcast now? What's that thing?
I would say to mom and to dad, you are amazing. Just remember, it's never too late to make changes. It's never too late. You can start today to make those changes. There's no shame in making those changes in parenting. You see, because your child's childhood is the
Mm,
foundation to their adulthood.
awesome.
You want them to hold better memories than they hold today. And we live in a global community now. So it's time to make those changes. It's time to leave the way we were parented. And when we say leave the way we were parented, we're not saying be ungrateful to your parents. No, your parents did the best with what they had.
Yeah,
Now it's time for you to do the best with what you have. Thank you.
amazing. Thank you. Guys, you heard it from Phinnah Chichi. See, go ahead, ask for that help. Ask for that help. Do not be ashamed. As in, it's never too late. From what you just said now, it's never too late. I want to start now. I
Yes.
want to get involved in that process with my child or with my children because a lot is just going on out there. All right. Before we say goodbye, where do we catch Fina Chichi? How do we catch her? Where do we catch her?
Fina Chichi is on social media platforms at Fina Chichi on Instagram, or my parenting platform is at Parenting Teens Solutions. That's the same name as well as my podcast, Parenting Teen Solutions Podcast. I'm on YouTube as well, Fina Chichi on YouTube, and Fina Chichi, Parenting Teen Solutions as well on YouTube
Mm,
as well. So I'm everywhere. Fina Chichi, Parenting Teen Solutions on all most social media platforms, including TikTok.
wonderful. Wonderful. So, guys, just go
Thank
on,
you.
the internet, type in Phinnah Chichi. You see a lot coming up about her.
Yes.
Let's Let's embrace this change that we so much yearn and desire to see all around us. You know how we say it on the show. This is the Word Cafe Live Show, and I'm your host, Amakri Isoboye. I believe in the power of words. Why? Because it is the unit of creation. Everything about creation starts from the spoken word. We want to change the way we see trauma. That is why we are speaking what we are speaking at this moment. Hmm, we will come your way again. When I mean we, you understand what I mean by that. Till I see you again, it is bye for now.
Thank you.